Snake, have you seen the movie The Great Escape?
March 1942. Inside occupied Poland, the Nazis construct a special POW camp called Stalag Luft 3. The legend of one especially spectacular breakout attempt by Allied airmen from the camp in 1944 would inspire the 1963 icon of Hollywood war epics, John Sturgis's The Great Escape. The Great Escape would be reviewed in 2002 for PS2 Mag by Hideo Kojima. Quote, "Of all movie experiences that fertilize the growing fruit of MGS, The Great Escape is one of the most powerful. If it did not exist, there probably would be no MGS today." End quote. The core concepts behind the original Metal Gear back in 1987 began with The Great Escape. In the film, characters are constantly trying and failing to exfiltrate. This would provide the underlying fundamentals for Metal Gear as a trailblazer in the genre of stealth action.
Group Captain Ramsey, in the past 4 years, the Reich has been forced to spend an enormous amount of time, energy, manpower, and equipment hunting down escaping prisoner of war officers.
Well, at least it's rather nice to know you're wanted, isn't it?
For us, it's not a matter for levity. There will be no escapes from this camp.
Colonel von Luger, it is the sworn duty of all officers to try to escape. If they can't, it is their sworn duty to cause the enemy to use an inordinate number of troops to guard them, and their sworn duty to harass the enemy to the best of their ability.
What wire?
This wire! The only wire!
Oh.
It's absolutely forbidden to cross it, you know that?
Yeah, but my baseball rolled over there. How am I going to get my baseball?
Yes, I know. The men under your authority have been most successful. This man, Ashley Pitt, for example, caught in the North Sea, escaped, recaptured, escaped, recaptured. Archibald R.G. Ives, 11 escape attempts. He even tried to jump out of the truck coming here. Dix, William, known to have participated in digging of 11 escape tunnels. Flight Lieutenant Wilinski, 4 escapes, MacDonald 9, Handley's American 5, Haynes 4, Sedgwick 7, the list is almost endless. One man here has made 17 attempted escapes. Group captain, this is close to insanity.
Out.
Out!
Yet. Tavaric.
Ah, your friend, yes?
Huh? Tavaric.
And who vouches for you, Lieutenant Wilinski? Get out, Sedgwick.
Quite.
And it must stop.
Colonel, do you expect officers to forget their duty?
No. It is because we expect the opposite that we have brought you here. This is a new camp. It has been built to hold you and your men. It is organized to incorporate all we have learned of security measures. And in me, you will not be dealing with a common jailer, but with a staff officer personally selected for the task by the Luftwaffe High Command. We have in effect put all our rotten eggs in one basket, and we intend to watch this basket carefully.
Very wise.
The Nazis think that they've put all their rotten egg POWs in one basket, but in reality, they've gathered together all the major players of Organization X, an underground POW resistance cell.
Who else is here? We got Cavendish.
Mm-hmm.
Nimmer and Soren.
Griffiths, Haynes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Almost the whole X organization.
Managed behind the shadows by senior British officer Ramsey, the leader of Organization X, known as Big X, is delivered to the camp by the Gestapo and the SS following 3 months of extended interrogation.
If he once more falls into our hands, he will not be so lucky.
Torture, notice, is pain from which there is no escape. Big X has been trapped in the endless nightmare of Nazi enslavement, and now more than ever, all hope of making it out alive seems lost.
Squadron Leader Bartlett, if you escape again and be caught, you will be shot.
But Bartlett still has one last card to play.
I'm going to cause such a terrible stink in this Third Reich of theirs.
The thousands of troops that could well be employed at the front will be tied up here looking after us.
How?
By putting more men out of this perfect camp of theirs than have ever escaped before. Oh, not blitzing out 2 or 3 or a dozen, but 200, 300. Scatter them all over Germany.
Do you think that's possible?
Well, the men are here to do it. The goons have put every escape artist in Germany in this camp. You say so yourself.
Have you thought of what it might cost?
I've thought of the humiliation if we just tamely submit. Knuckle under and crawl. Surely you don't advocate that, do you, sir?
Big X enlists a number of key characters, many of whom come in pairs. First, there's Robert the Scrounger Hendley and Colin the Forger Blythe. Next are Willie Dix and Danny Valinsky, the Tunnel Kings. Finally, there's Archie the Mole Ives and Virgil Hiltz, the Cooler King. Every member of X is a specialist. Louis the Manufacturer Sedgwick, for example, makes tools and other objects for the escape. But even minor members of the team, like Eric Ashley Pitt, a Royal Navy airman, have important roles, his being to provide an ingenious solution to the first big problem for X's Great Escape tunnel dig, what to do with the dug-up dirt. The camp was intentionally built on a distinctly colored soil. Ashley Pitt devises a surreptitious method of laundering the soil together with the tunnel dirt, using bags and strings, while transporting them at the same time. Meanwhile, the American scrounger Hindley contributes to the cause by playing spy. He gets the upper hand against a naive guard, Werner the Ferret, taking him for all he's worth. Organization X begin to build 3 tunnels, the loud construction sounds covered up with help from the prison choir. These tunnels, Big X dubs Tom, Dick, and Harry. When Tom is completed early, Big X orders the other 2 shut down. Meanwhile, completely on their own, 2 particularly rebellious POWs, Archie the Mole Ives and Virgil Hiltz, the only other American besides Hendley, keep the enemy busy with near constant trips in and out of solitary confinement, known as the Cooler. Initially, Hiltz, also a scrounger, has no interest in taking part of the escape plan of Organization X. But when Hiltz gets the POWs a little too swept up in American patriotism by brewing his own potato booze for Independence Day, the Nazis take the opportunity to inspect the camp facilities and uncover the existence of the Tunnel Tom. Major bad news. This is one foiled escape attempt too many for Ives. He commits suicide by Nazi. The death of his friend convinces the independent Hiltz to align with Organization X. He gets out using the tunnel, but instead of doing it to save his own skin, Hiltz gathers intel and allows himself to be recaptured. This provides the necessary maps for the team, but the psychological tension for the POWs is at feverish levels. Tunnel King Danny has a breakdown from his lifelong claustrophobia, and Blythe the Forger learns he's losing his sight thanks to all that forging by candlelight. It falls to the scrounger, Hendley, to guide the old birdwatcher's escape, and SBO Lindsay, now reliant on a cane, can't make the escape at all. In total, 76 POWs get out, but even if a few succeed, most, 50 in fact, are recaptured, rounded up, and butchered. The big exception is Hiltz himself, whose high-speed chase atop a motorcycle winds him up where else but once again in the Cooler. Big X, shortly before being executed, admits in the end that his great escape was more or less just a power fantasy to keep up his will to live.
You know, Meg, all this, the organization, tunneling, Tom and Harry, kept me alive. And even though I've never been happier. You know, Meg,
in the end, freedom wasn't about having total control, it was about the will to survive, the will to make it through. Bartlett never gave in to the Nazis in his soul, so in this respect he died a free man. The ending, while melancholic, also strikes a heroic tone. A big stylistic influence The Great Escape had on MGS is commitment to the conceit of real time. In a sense, the film resembles its content. This 3-hour movie is like a tunnel itself, with the same military truck convoy tunneling us out as in. The use of real time gives The Great Escape its incredible level of suspense.
House, get out! House, get out here! Get out! House here! House down! House there! Hey, cut him on, Dan! House! There! schneller, schneller, schneller. Aus, aus, aus. Du da hinten. Raus hier. Raus, da hinten. Raus, raus, kommt raus. Kommt raus hier. Raus, raus, raus. Hier, raus, raus, raus. Sag auch, hey.
You're not in your hut? What are you doing here?
Mopping up.
And you?
Shower. I need a wash.
I'm watching him. I'm a lifeguard.
Raus!
But it also sings together with another aspect it would share with Metal Gear. Physicalism, for lack of a better word. In The Great Escape, sneaking past the enemy and solving a problem like where to put the gravel are really part of the same mission. It's a highly physicalist film in this sense. Huge chunks of The Great Escape depict struggles against the rules not only of the Third Reich, but of physics, math, structural engineering, and simple geography. Every aspect of the plan is revealed for us in detail, including how it all happens in real time and how it's all concealed. We see, thanks to the real-time format, absolutely everything that's involved, from planning to construction to execution and the aftermath. Most Metal Gear games would follow a similar format. The use of guile and intelligence rather than brute force characterizes both. One of the most iconic images from the Metal Gear series are the searchlights at night. These came from The Great Escape, and they'd be featured in some form from MGS1 to Ground Zeroes. And of course there are the use of disguises, which we'd see in MGS 1, 2, 3, and 4. But even the themes are similar between The Great Escape and the Metal Gear games, and both would feature a strong emphasis on asymmetrical warfare. Metal Gear was innovative in 1987 for borrowing from The Great Escape's physicalism. Levels, unlike in say Super Mario, were supposed to be in the real world. There's a prison break sequence where you have to find the right brick to punch by the different sound it makes. The guards only saw right in front of them. Trucks weren't just decorations, they contained items. A bulletproof vest lessened damage, and so on. All these were examples of physicalism that Metal Gear had imported straight from The Great Escape.
I can't just knock on the door and ask them to let me in.
Wherever we put it, they're going to spot it a mile away.
Well, maybe we could put it under the hut. The dirt's dark there.
No, it's the first place the ferrets would look. I saw one measuring the height under a hut yesterday.
Or maybe we could dry it out the same color.
We'll have 50 tons of it.
I was just thinking out loud.
If you must think, for God's sake, think clearly.
He read your mind with his psychic abilities. Somehow you've got to get around him.
The Great Escape, simply put, is about refusing to give up and believing in yourself, even in the face of all but certain defeat. The use of real time is key here. We experience the struggle of Bartlett and Organization X right along with them. The tension makes it almost impossible not to get sucked into the cinematic action. Kojima's origins as a creator went back to short stories and movies that he made as a young man. From the get-go, Kojima was trying to merge the interaction between video games and these other more narrative-heavy formats. The Great Escape's emphasis on real time was unusual for the era of the early 60s, but it's ideal for a video game. Much like in The Great Escape, in the Metal Gear series, the drama and suspense through real time is as much in getting to a new development as the story development itself. In Metal Gear Solid 1, for example, weapons and items must be procured on site, just like most of the other games. This is just a fancy modern military term for scrounging. Just as characters from The Great Escape have to intuit conclusions off the environment, in MGS1 a POW is hidden behind a recently painted over entryway, which Snake must uncover by blowing it open with C4. Another Great Escape-like element of MGS1 are the constant trips to the armory. This is part of what I mean by the film's legacy of real time. In one dramatic sequence in MGS1, Snake has to double back to recover a sniper rifle while a comrade bleeds out. The tension of every step here is derived from The Great Escape, which is also all about snap decisions and improvisation in the face of setbacks and even tragedy. You don't need a ton of dialogue or plotting to get such tension. In The Great Escape, tension is built precisely the same way that we see here, by delaying gratification with real time. In the end, none of the many failed escapes really matter to the story, functionally speaking. But these foiled attempts still have meaningfulness to the viewing experience itself. Even if the status quo of confinement and foiled escapes is somewhat returned by the end, it would be obviously false to conclude that in The Great Escape nothing really happens. The attempted escapes, to the contrary, are the film's heart and soul, and the exact same dynamic between the moment-to-moment and the big picture would inform Metal Gear.
This wire! The only wire!
But so would the life-affirming struggle of an underdog. Just like in The Great Escape, every game in the Metal Gear franchise is about a determined but basically doomed protagonist and their struggle to make the impossible possible. Every Metal Gear without fail would also feature a thrilling chase scene, usually as the big finish, like in The Great Escape. Metal Gear games made a name for themselves by having such great support characters. The way a given support team member typically comes with their own nationality, their own idiosyncrasies, it's right out of The Great Escape. There's even a Birdwatcher support character in Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, just like Blythe. And the way that Danny the Tunnel King was powered by claustrophobia would influence the emotion-specific Cobra unit of MGS3. The Great Escape was one of the greatest World War II movies ever made. MGS built off its legacy to become one of the greatest stealth action game franchises ever made, too. The Great Escape debuted 20 years after its setting of events. The movie feels so triumphant partially because it is finally the moment at which the secret struggle of Organization X can be told to the entire world. In every Metal Gear, there is the same sense of peering deep behind enemy lines, behind the public facade. Often as Snake, the player is trying to escape, not with any stolen weapon, but simply with the truth. In the review, Kojima would mention his favorite scene from the film. Quote, "You may be surprised. It isn't the famous border-crossing bike stunt that I like the best. No, I love the bit at the end where the captured Hiltz, played by McQueen, is thrown into the cooler by a jailer who has been doing this all through the film. It's his expression I really like as he walks away, emotionless from the cell, only to hear Hiltz throwing his baseball against the wall. The jailer stops and his expression says so much. It comes right after the Gestapo have killed 50 escaping hostages, which upset me as a kid watching it. But this jailer's very human reaction here, a sense of amazement and respect, changes the aftertaste of the movie. It teaches you that the enemy soldier is human as well, and captures the irony of war brilliantly. I'm sure it was The Great Escape which inspired me to create the running away from the enemy concept in Metal Gear Solid. The Nazis patrolling around, the surveillance tower, the searchlights sweeping the ground, and the walls in the dark. However, it was more the film's sense of thrill than its visuals that I wanted to capture. In the middle of the movie, for instance, there's a climactic scene where 250 hostages try to escape together. The plan seems to be carefully executed, but the underground tunnel to the forest is 20 feet short, because they measure it wrong. The men try to escape anyway, and Hiltz, once he reaches the forest, watches out for the guards and gives out a signal so the rest can climb out the hole and scramble across one by one. This is a truly stomach acid-inducingly tense scene. Then a guy with a large bag falls, and a guard hears him. As he approaches, the men hold their breath and stay still. The thrill, the tension, I wanted to recreate this experience for real in Metal Gear Solid. That's the feeling I remember most about the movie, more than the story or the direction, the thrill of hiding.